All right, let me get started, guys. Thanks for coming so much. I really appreciate y'all being here at my session today. I'm going to probably put my glasses on and off as I look down at some notes. And this is, as I was just discussing with Pat, a refinement of some of the stuff I've done over the few years, try to take some things out that people don't need, put some things back in that people do need, and condense this. So my name is James Smith. I've worked on both sides as a developer, leading a development team. I'm not a coder. And now I work on the client side. So one of my first clients called me back up and said, hey, we need someone to help run these websites. I want to come give us a hand. So I've seen the communication issues we had as an agency working for clients, trying to walk them through the process and all the pain. And now I've seen it from the other side as the client, dealing with the vendor and equally all the pain and all the frustration. And oddly enough, I wound up in the communications department to help run the websites. So communications has always been a passion of mine. I had a class in undergraduate where a professor just absolutely blew my mind with some tools. And I said, no way that works. And I just tried it. And it worked. And it was so easy. I'm like, no way. And I tried the next one, and I was really impressed with that. So it became a lifelong curiosity. I wound up getting a minor in communications. And now in the communications department and all around the organization, I teach some of these tools to help other departments understand the difference between the message they give and the message that's received and why it does or does not succeed. And in project management, as the leader of the team, listening to my team's frustration, and now as the client side, again, listening to my team's frustration, the business owner's frustration, understanding both sides of these messages, how they're sent and how they're received, where that pain comes in, where the noise comes in, and seeing, boy, it would be so much better if we could just grab a few of the tools and which ones are the best ones to use. Now, there's a bunch of tools I learned. I've titled this for the 4 hacks, and I'm going to show you both literally some brain hacks and some tools. And I'll confess, I've already used some of the brain hacks on you already. Showing you my palms, I've got a nice t-shirt on, exposing my neck. These are speaking hacks, but they hit your brain, hit the neural system, and I'm doing it on purpose. But I'm going to confess and own up to them so that you can get the benefit of these tools too. So it's sort of an interactive session, nice small group, and feel free to start asking questions. It's Drupal Camp. Most of you guys are familiar faces and are used to this, so that's fine. These are the things I want to go over with you today. These are my 4 main tools. We're going to look at the transactional model of communication, and specifically focusing on the 2 important parts of that. Understanding what noise is, and where it is, and what a frame is, and why that's important. Now the frame is, oddly enough, a really key element. Most people get the idea of noise, but when you start to understand the frame, you'll see where the noise is, and how to start tuning it out, and be more aware of it, and practicing being aware of it as you communicate in your teams, with your clients. And I'll tell you now, you can use these tools anywhere. Use them at home with your kids, with your spouse, with your parents, anywhere. I'm going to talk about the best communication channels. I'm using this vocabulary very specifically. Channels is normally something you would talk about in marketing, but in this case, we're talking about communication channels. We're going to talk about conflict. What's the origins of conflict? A very simple model. All of these tools are designed to be very simple. The most abstract level, so it's easy to hold them in your head and practice them so that you can see how they work. And I'll give you some examples of really simple ways to practice them so you can observe these tools and the dynamics of them and just start to convince yourself exactly the way I did, going, look how it works. Come on in, come on in. And then lastly, the ABCs of emotions, because emotions make a lot of that noise. And this is something called the CBT model of emotional management. Whether we try to be professional at work, and that means leaving your emotions at home and leaving your issues at home, emotions are ubiquitous, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. So they're always going to be there, and being aware of that in the communication process, as you start to step back, you're going to abstract yourself a little bit, going, here's the client in my face, snarling at me, and they're pissed. How do I walk them off the edge of that cliff? That's exactly what I want to help you guys do. That's emotion. All right. So the pre-learning tools. I want to help you guys learn to move clients, anyone, from angry to calm. And understanding the criticism, anger cycle that's happening, that's creating that. And so that you understand which steps work, which steps fail, and why, and how easy, really easy it is to make the wrong step. Because most of the time, the examples you've had your whole life are the wrong steps. And without thinking about it, you repeat them. Then I want you to think about, this is Pat and I were just talking about, I used to work with Glenn at ImageX. Glenn is a big proponent of what he calls the CHIP model. And that is to build and give confidence at every touch, especially with a client relationship. Small wins add up. And that value is what you need to build because you're going to take withdrawals against that value. You know there are going to be moments when you miscommunicate. And in that moment, they're going to take something out of your account. So you need to build that account to have something to deduct against. Because sooner or later, that account gets to zero. And then you're working on credit. And that credit only goes so far. And the depth of that credit depends on the depth of the relationship. In a business relationship, that is very shallow. People are ready to cut off the relationship. And it's a money decision. They say, oh, it's a business decision. But it happens in an emotional environment with confidence. So you want to, at every moment, use these brain hacks, use these communication tools to grab a penny at a time to build that account. And it adds up. The same way you're doing your accounting at home, small costs add up. You learn that as an adult. In a communication process, in a relationship process, because that's what you're doing, that adds up. It's very important. I'm going to show you progression, another little pre-tool hack of relational decay and growth. And I want to show you the hierarchy of emotional being to show you the goals that you're trying to push people to. In project management, we talk about stakeholder management. This is exactly the same. In stakeholder management, we talk about this is where my stakeholder is, this is where I need them to be. I'm trying to move them. What's my strategy? You're doing the exact same thing here. So I'm going to start off with my first pocket tool, relationship growth and decay. So first three are the things we're going to build a hierarchy of growth. The second are the decay. And what you want to do with these tools is watch this progression. Observe what's happening. Ask yourself, where am I on this scale? What's happening? Not just with the client, but with me or with my team. Am I the one on this scale or on this scale? Keep pushing to the top scale. When you see your team get down here, get them off. Get them off of the decay pattern. So what you're going to do, identify, we're going to get more into this, identify where someone's coming from, understanding their worldview. Am I in your way? Understanding their worldview, understanding the client. As you start to do that, you'll hear this kind of language. You'll hear people describe it in many different ways. And sometimes it's called reflecting. You want to reflect that worldview back to someone. And as you do, they open up to you more. That's another brain hack. You adjust your posture to match theirs. You adjust your tone to match theirs. You adjust your attitude to match theirs. You reflect, and they feel more comfortable, and they start to engage more. That's what you want for that relationship building. You respond to their cues. Now, normally in a romantic relationship, that means you're watching for your partner to look at you, want to hold your hand, and you're going to respond to that. You're aware, oh, yes, I'm going to respond to that. With a client relationship, it's not romantic cues, but see if you can find them. Anything your client does that may not be related to business at all, but you still want to grab that hack, you still want that small win. So if the client starts engaging in small talk, starts talking about their favorite team, your favorite team, or their new outfit, their new shoes, engage in that, respond to that. Make sure you think of allowing time to have that space so you can take advantage of it if it shows up. Because you're moving up the scale. Unfortunately, this is a growth scale and this is the growth scale. I should have reversed it. Also, showing admiration, a great hack. Just like I said, the client may be talking about my clothes, my shoes. If they don't, you can talk about it. Those are great shoes. And that's a brain hack. It's very hard for someone to receive a compliment and go, they respond to that. The trick is, do not be obsequious. People do not like to be manipulated or sold. And if it feels skeevy or obsequious, they get it. You may not know. It's like people don't always know the rules of conversation, but they know when they've been broken. The rules of conversation are, I'm going to talk, you're going to talk, and it's shared. But if someone keeps going a little too long, you feel it. You can't quite mentally necessarily put your finger on it without thinking about it, but you know it's happened. Even now, as I'm the speaker in the front of the room, I'm at that point where my timer's going, I've talked too long, but in this situation it's appropriate. So find ways to show admiration to whoever you're trying to relate to. In this case, we're talking about business. It can be your boss, it can be your team, especially your client. But don't be obsequious, don't manipulate. Find a limit, be authentic, find something authentic. And that way you can find something about someone to appreciate, and I'll show you another scale in a moment why that's very important. This is perhaps a little more important, the decay scale. When a relationship decays, it moves up this hierarchy. So it starts with criticism, and not just constructive criticism, not just any criticism that has negatives only without balance. When you hear your client give you a rant about this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, and they haven't told you anything they appreciate about what you're doing, you are at level 1. Big warning. Find a way to get off that. When you hear your team ranting about the client, they don't understand, blah, blah, blah. No, they don't. We build websites every day. Most clients don't. They don't understand. If you allow your team to start talking in that way, they're going to go right down this. And that will be a disaster. That is going to cause more cost overruns. Don't let your team do that. You don't have to tell them that you're stopping that. You don't have to tell them what you're doing. This specifically, unless you are that open and you want to bring it to the level of conversation in present tense, that's fine. But be mindful of it. Second thing is defensiveness. People are reacting only, they're not listening. When you respond to your client who's just giving you that rant of everything that's wrong, with no balance about how much they appreciate your work or how hard it is or how much time, and they respond with, you say, but we're doing this, 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 and this, and it's just a defensive reaction, or you're giving the defensive reaction, they're not listening. We're going to get to some more of that in a moment. The next level is stonewalling. They're not even listening now. Watch for the body language. You see that look on their face, you go, they're not listening. The eyes get glassy. It's the body language that has the attitude to it. You're at level 3. You're about to be at level 4, which is contempt. And when you're at contempt, they're right at the level going, man, do I need to fire this guy? Do I need to hire someone else? Some agencies talk about, do we need to fire the client? And sometimes that is appropriate. So those set of tools are great to have in your pocket. Sir?
Specifically, what does that less than you mean?
Contempt means a loss of respect, and the other person you have contempt for is less than you.
Okay.
You're smarter than they are. You're better than they are.
You think less of them.
That's right.
Okay.
You start to separate. You play the game of us versus them. They have now become them.
Okay.
When someone is them, they are other. You can do anything to them. This is the case you see over and over again in issues of racism, genocide, extreme behavior that's just horrible. You have to make someone other than human, and then you can treat them as dirt. And you'll hear that in communication. You'll hear, sir.
Curious, the less than you thing, isn't that always there? The less than you concept, isn't that always there on everybody's mind in one way or the other? The issue is when does that bubble up? That's what you're saying, right? That I'm better educated than you. I drive a better car than you. I'm in a better financial position than you. I'm in a better health than you. There are a lot of things where people can feel better about than somebody else, right?
That's correct.
And you are the vendor. I am the client, right?
Right.
I am employing you, right?
Right.
So, all these kind of things have inequality.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, relativity.
Yeah.
Positional relativity.
Right.
This is the end of the scale of relativity. Thank you for that. Thank you for the question. That's a great question. And thank you for letting me have the opportunity to respond to that. This is the end of the scale. You have moved from, it's very difficult not to say, I'm taller than you. You notice it, even if you don't think that way.
Right.
You start to see differences.
Right.
Part of the whole us versus them mentality comes from how we've existed, how we evolved as human beings. Before we had language, which is an abstraction, we communicated very differently. And it was very important to know who was in our group and who was out of our group. So our brains are wired to notice these differences, us versus them. And them becomes more and more less than. So it's one thing to notice a difference. I'm taller than you, I'm more educated than you. It's another thing to have an attitude about it and start to say, well, that means you're less than.
That's where contempt
You're
comes
further and
from.
further away. So we are wired to understand that people in our group, we want to share resources with and help to succeed. People outside of our group, we want to discriminate against sharing our resources to save them for our progeny. There was a time, millions of years ago, when humans lived about 20 years, but sexual maturity was about 12 years, which means as you had kids, you were not going to survive long enough to raise them. The community had to help that. Now, at that point in human development, we were probably more ape than man, but the wiring is still there. When you look up understandings of how the brain is wired, how it's constructed, we have 3 brains. It's like, unlike construction projects on the interstate where they say, oh wow, this is terrible, we're going to destroy the interchange and build it right. You can't do that with a human body or with anybody. You have to say, okay, we're going to evolve, so we keep the structure that was there and add to it. So at the base of your brain, you have the lizard brain. Then you have a mammalian brain, and then the front part is the human brain. And they operate at different speeds, and they have different operating systems. And one of the base systems, core system, is observation of difference. It is impossible not to notice, do you speak like I do? Do you have the same accent I do? Do you dress like I do? Do you look like I do? Do you have the same skin color? You and I do not. And those visual cues hit you and hit that lizard brain and that mammalian brain and instantly say, just like you pointed out, there's a difference. But what we make of that difference is what's key here. At this point in the scale, what you've made of the difference is, I hate you. I discriminate against you. You're not even worth my time. You're not human. It's not just that I'm taller than you and better than you. It's, I think of you as something completely different. So that's an extreme way to think of it, but it's illustrative. What you want to do, less like with project management and the stakeholder management, where do I want my people to be? Emotions exist all the time. We try to be professional and not, not walk into a business meeting and cry about something or get too happy because it gets weird. But what you want is to move people up this ladder and not down. And the simplest way is to find that acknowledgement and that appreciation. If you can't find something in common, business-wise or intellectually, find anything. Well, at least you got nice hair. And just that moves you right off the bottom. You can't stay there when someone says, we don't agree on anything, you are so different, but I like the way you dress. And that's another brain hack. They can't stay at the bottom. Once they receive that compliment, they're like, oh man, it can't be all bad. At least he appreciates my good taste. And you start climbing back up. So you start in the middle with something neutral. And you're trying to move them. The first level up and down is simply intellectual. The second level up and down is emotional. And the third level is your whole body reacts like, oh, I hate that guy. Again, just a little pocket tool. So I want to get to, sir.
In your previous slides, you were mentioning the states, right? Now, once, let's say you give a compliment, isn't that also perceived that now somebody is less than you also?
Tell me more.
So when I say, okay, that's very smart, or you look gorgeous, right? Now, does that put you that you are probably less gorgeous? Does the other person can perceive it in that dimension? Not
It's
necessarily.
possible. That's certainly possible.
That was the smartest thing I have ever seen. Now, I could have never thought of that, right? Now you are putting yourself also
When you
on
say
the
it
other
like
side.
that, when you say it like that,
It's a
I-
self-deprecation.
yes,
Yeah,
when you say it, I never
yeah.
thought about that.
Yeah.
Don't phrase it that way. That's
Right,
excellent.
Right.
Thank you. I'm going to use that. That's great.
So I think moving somebody up the ladder, but also at the same time not moving yourself.
Right. So don't
Is-
say it in a self-deprecating way, because also that can be overdone, becomes obsequious, becomes received as manipulation. People don't like to be manipulated or sold. So balance it. When you say, "I really like your shoes,"
Yeah.
you are equating yourself. You say, "Hey man, I could get into that. I could wear those."
Yeah.
We're equal.
Right.
When you say, "Wow, I could never wear that," now you're saying we're not equal.
Exactly.
Don't phrase it that way, because
Right.
you've hacked two brains in that instance.
Yours.
Theirs and yours.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, thank you. That was fantastic. Wow, I'm totally going to use that. Let me move on to some other stuff, because I want to get you guys through these four tools. So those are my pre-learning ones. And these are the basic things that help you to understand some structure about what's going on, that you can use as the brain hacks and think of how you structure how you say what you say. Now I want to look at a communication transaction and break it down into parts. Has anyone seen this diagram? There are several versions of this, and some of them are lighter. This one is much more complete, and one of my favorite because it has all the components. As I mentioned before, language is a modern invention. It is an abstraction. What language you speak is completely random depending on where you were born and what family you grew up in. There's nothing standard about it. But how you emote is universal. From humans down to monkeys. So we existed in a culture in a way that did not have this abstraction of words or even the capability to make them for millions of years. We are wired in this way. So this addresses the wiring. One of the things that happens now, because language is an abstraction, I have an idea. Babies, infants, have no language, but they are communicating. And adults are going, "What do you want? What do you want? What do you want?" Trying to figure it out. And babies are rapidly developing the neural connections to make that language and communicate with you the way you communicate. They're trying to align their frame and yours. That's the trick. So you have a source, which is your idea. It's going to be an image. It's going to exist in a way in your mind that does not have words. You're going to translate that into words. And your ability to do that at any given moment is related to how much sleep you had, how much nutrition you've had, how emotional you are. When you're really mad, it's hard. But how many of you had, my mother, I'm the youngest of four, and when she was really mad, she had to go through all four names before she got to me. "Jay, Craig, like, you know your name, get over here." She couldn't think because the chemistry is in the way. So you're going to encode a message. You're going to turn an idea into words. First intersection of noise. That was my mother. Noise. I can't think of your name, but I know who I'm talking to, and I know what I'm thinking, and you know who you are. That's noise. It starts in your own head. Then you're going to encode that, and you're going to transmit it through some channel. At this point, the channel is the air between here, me and you, that carries vibration to your ears. Sometimes the channel is the email, sometimes it's telephone. Channel, I like using that word and focusing on it because the marketing department will use that, channels to market, and it's a very similar concept, and it's helpful to align your thinking with theirs and understanding of that channel. So that message is going to go through that channel. There may be noise. Some of that noise may be the airport over here making noise as well, making it harder for you to hear me. Some of it may be the phone doesn't work. Some of it may be the computer doesn't work. Or the computer has a lag. You say, "Well, I sent you that email. Didn't arrive here yet." An email sent does not mean an email received. When the message does arrive, you're going to decode those words and turn them back into an idea. The whole goal is for me to get this image in my mind described and translated into yours and have that be accurate. And I guarantee it won't be, which is where this becomes vitally important, the feedback loop. You watch the person you're talking to. You look for rapport. Are they with me? Are they paying attention? Have I lost them? Have the eyes gone glassy? And you ask, tell me what you understand. Do not ask if they understand, because they don't know. No one knows what they don't know.
Right.
So when I say, do you understand? You go, yes. You have failed to communicate. Because I don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know, neither of us knows the gap between my vision and yours of what I just said. I said, do you understand? And you say, yes. You understand what you think you understand, which is not in perfect alignment with what I am trying to communicate. Ask a better question. Ask them to explain it back to you. When they say, yeah, I understand, then explain it to me. And as they do, you say, okay, I need to adjust that, and adjust that, and adjust that. This is hugely important because words do not have meanings. Let me say that again. Words do not have meanings. They have usages. You can use the exact same words, and it will have different meanings. If I say, you are so smart. If I say, oh, you're so smart. Totally different meaning. Exact same words. Which is where more of that noise comes in. And I'm going to get to that in more than a minute. So you're looking for response and feedback. John.
So, I get what you're saying, and you're probably exactly right, except that it kind of sounds condescending sometimes, particularly if you're dealing with a client.
Yes.
You just listen to what I have to say. Did you understand it?
Yeah.
Now tell me.
Tell me, yeah.
Tell
Yes.
me how you understand it. Oh, now you're wrong, because let me tell you where you're wrong.
Yes. Oh,
That's
yeah.
not
Clients
a-
hate that.
That's
But
terrible.
you know, from the agency side, we said they're going, oh my God, clients are so stupid.
Right.
Because they don't know. They don't do this every day. They don't eat this vocabulary every day. And we're so used to it and going, oh yeah, I got it, move on. Yeah, I got it, move on. And you have to slow back down. They don't. They don't have all that code.
Right. So what's a way that you can say it that's not condescending?
3 magic words, and I just use them on a meet. Tell me more.
Okay.
And start watching the language.
What if the response is, tell me more what? Tell you more what? What do you want to hear?
Tell me more about what you just,
Tell me what you think about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Start inviting conversation. Be aware of exactly what you said. You can even raise that to the level of conversation. You go, I'm like, the example of my mother. At the moment, I don't have good language to express this in a positive way, but what I want is to create a space to get the feedback from you to make sure we are clear.
Right.
And as you raise that to the present tense in the level of conversation, you start to erase that. Because that first reaction is, man, this guy's sort of a jerk. He's really arrogant. It's like, no. What I want is positive communication. I want to make sure that I've done my job to communicate. That's also one of the important things. As the speaker, it is your responsibility to make sure the message is delivered as you intend. You walk into McDonald's and you say, I'd like a fish sandwich, please. And the high school kid behind the counter says, here you go, and hands you a cheeseburger. It's easy to walk away and go, wow, that kid just didn't listen. Who is walking away with the problem? The teenager or you who has the wrong food? It is your responsibility to make sure the message is understood as you mean it, so that the vision at both ends is correct. Because they don't know. No one knows what they don't know. It's impossible. And you will be the one left with the problem. You can walk away with an attitude and go, man, teenagers at McDonald's are just the worst. Maybe that's true, but you still have the wrong sandwich. You have the problem. And the whole point is solving these, getting the noise out and realizing where they come in and going, wow, I can smooth out so much, I can save so much budget, save so much time, save so much heartache and stress by making sure I take responsibility for the message. And that's another great tool. Say that. Say, it's my responsibility to make sure you understand the vision. Or you're listening to the client say, this is what I want. And you say, I want to help understand, because it gets weird if you say it that way, but I want to help make sure I understand what you need, what you're saying. Is it this? You start giving very rich feedback so that they have the opportunity to go, oh, yeah, I said I wanted it blue, but I meant baby blue, or I meant royal blue, or I meant midnight blue. You have to take the abstraction down to the more specifics, and working that out in a negotiation. Through some practice, you start to get better at this. and it happens fast. I'll get to some of the practices in some more in a minute. So what you can do is you're asking for feedback and response. You say, okay, I've just hit you with a lot of descriptions here, Mr. Client. Give me some feedback is a good way. Tell me more. Help me understand what you now understand what I've just said so that I can be sure we're on the same page. And you're leveling the field that way. You're giving them appreciation. You're giving them acknowledgement. You're saying, I'm including you in this transaction, not just dumping it on you. They call that a push communication style, where here's the information, it's your responsibility to understand it. That's going to succeed maybe half the time and fail half the time. It's your responsibility to make sure the message is understood as you need it to be understood. So look for the feedback, ask for it, watch for it, and draw it back out. Give it. And as you give it more, you'll see people respond to go, oh, based on that feedback, now I know a better word or a better way to describe that. Let me give you this. And you start to achieve better communication. So you can help support the speaker by giving good feedback, and you can ask for good feedback. Do the whole thing.
So one way to say what you're describing here is get the cooperation of the person you're communicating with.
Yes.
Because if it's coming as an instruction, you're dead end, and then you can't work with that kind of a situation out.
That's correct.
So get them to cooperate somehow.
That's correct. And you're using those brain hacks. Sometimes you're just dealing with someone who's shy and isn't comfortable being assertive about, oh, I want this. And they're like, yeah, that's fine. And at the end, they're like, that's nothing like what I wanted. And you're like, oh. Recognize that. That's in project management, you write that down as a risk. What's your plan to address that risk? Let me address these two circles, this little Venn diagram. That's called a perceptual frame. If they do not overlap in some way, in some degree, you cannot communicate. If you only speak Spanish and I only speak English, the only level of communication we will be able to manage is body language and pantomime, nonverbal. If you speak Spanish and I speak English and we can't see each other, that fails. Communication fails. I'm a huge fan of Star Trek. One of my favorite moments is Star Trek V. The constant Dr. McCoy and Dr. Spock, games, and Spock has died and come back from the dead, and here's the medical doctor. He says, Spock, you've died and come back to life. I'm a medical doctor. I'm very interested. Tell me what that was like. And Spock zigs it with, well, Dr. McCoy, without a common frame of reference, it would be impossible to have a conversation. And that's the line of the movie, and it's a joke, it's a gag. The actors play it, and it's funny, but it's absolutely true. It's like, how do I explain that to you? Carl Sagan does a great demonstration of describing the book called Flatland. Everybody heard of that? Look up, you don't have to read the whole book. Grab YouTube, Carl Sagan, Flatland. He said, if you exist in a world that is only 2 dimensions, flatland, and someone from a 3-dimensional world comes along and says, boop, hey, look at this, here's 3-dimensional world, okay, I'll send you back, and you go, hey everybody, I just, they said, where were you, where have you been, you just appeared out of nowhere. And he said, well, I was this place called Up, and they all look at you like, what's Up? Up doesn't exist in flatland. There's no overlap of that perceptual frame, and that's the vocabulary difference between you and the client. You're far apart. Start aligning those perceptual frames. That's a huge input of noise. Any more questions on our diagram? At each of these points, noise 1, noise 2, noise 3, noise 4, noise 5. Many diagrams just say noise once. There are 5 intersections of noise from me to you right now. From the words in my head, translating into words I'm speaking, through the air, to the words in your head, decoded back into the image. 5 times.
Why is the noise specifically called out within where the fields of experience overlap?
In this diagram, it makes the diagram noisy to write that in everywhere.
Okay.
And 2, they're saying physical noise. Here, it's mental noise. It's it can be nerval noise, your ability to pronounce things clearly and effectively, through the neural condition of your body comes into play here. There's a plane flying over right now, physical environment noise. Your ability to hear, again, a neural condition, and your ability to think, a cognitive condition. So it's just the limitations of the diagram. That is exactly correct, thank you. But nothing's perfect. That's the common frame of reference and why I want to stress that. And the noise in the communication process. So, how many of you, if I were to ask, the words I'm using, what percentage of the communication event, and the value of communication of the message is the words? Give me a number. Jason?
Sorry, say it again.
What percentage of my message is communicated through the words? Give me a number, 1 to 100%.
I'd say maybe 75.
75%? Amit?
Yeah, a little bit more.
A little bit more?
Yeah.
Letty doesn't get called on, she knows the answer. I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
John.
John, thank you for joining us. Give me a number, what do you think?
50%.
50%. Pat? Oh, you know the answer, you've seen this.
I don't remember though, that was 2 years ago, come on.
All right. All right, pop quiz, Pat. What do you think?
I have no idea, 90%.
90%?
Huge, yeah.
Sean?
I'll go for 1%.
1%. And would this shock you?
Hi.
Closest.
Interesting.
Remember what a story I was telling you about how we existed for millions of years as animals without verbal words? We communicated through body language and tone. Vocal means tone.
Oh, okay.
It's how you say your words, not just the words
That's
themselves.
right.
So a full transcription of this presentation and I read it, I would only get 7% of the presentation?
No,
Potentially,
you get
yes.
the vocal too, right?
That's
If
by
you-
not
if you hear the
necessarily,
audio.
because that's the, I said a transcription.
Oh, I see.
Might-
See the noise there?
Right.
or worse, just the slides, because people say, oh, the slides will be available without any context or being in the slides
Yeah.
almost mean
Yeah,
that.
I do not have an outline on my slides that I am reading to you. My
Right.
slides are almost useless to you without hearing my
Right.
voice.
Right. That's most presentations are like that. Oh, my slides will be available. Well,
Yeah, if people pointed that at school, if I can read the lecture on the slide, why do I need to go to class? Very important. And it's also one of the bad rules of making slides. If you put your audience to sleep, leave some points on the slides, but you want them engaged in your voice to control that communication, to control that noise. So this is a huge, important tool. 55-38-7. It's the difference between you are so smart and you're so smart. Only in the tone. And you can add body language to it to get more attitude. So that's what you're doing. As the speaker, with that feedback loop, you're looking for that feedback. Don't just use a push communication. Well, I said it. The words delivered don't have the same meaning as the words received. Watch their body language. Are you getting this? What's happening? Are they engaged? It's almost impossible to control the nervous system not to respond. You'll find, once you get to the C-suite, you'll get a lot of very controlled body language, a lot of very controlled nervous systems. Yeah, they'll just be very cool customers. Oh, thank you very much. It's like going to a job interview. Sometimes it's very hard to read. Watch some of the poker tournaments. They're all trying to control their body language and tone to give no signals at all. So you know this. Grab this tool. Think about it as you're communicating. Pay attention to what is the body language I'm observing. What is the tone I'm hearing? So, classic example. Use this at home. You come home and your significant other, your roommate, they're in the kitchen cooking and they're crying, but they are not chopping onions. And you say, you can't help but respond and say, observe something here, and you say, is everything all right? And what's the classic response? Fine. Okay, what's just happened in that moment? You've observed and now experienced this conflict between, I've observed 55% of a message and the 7% response I got back does not agree. At that moment, and people go, okay, what do I do? Raise it to the present tense. Raise it to the level of conversation. Say, okay, I hear you saying you're fine, but I'm observing things that don't look fine. This is a key point in communication. Observations and inferences. You are observing. Doug, come on in, come on in. you're observing communication just from the body language, and you're asking for the feedback and trying to make these things reconcile. And now you have a tool to say, let me bring this to the present tense to say, because I'm confused. I have made an observation and I'm inferring there's a problem. And I'm worried that the problem is me. I made you mad, I made you unhappy, I've done something wrong, I forgot to pay the rent. As a client, what's going on? So raise the conversation, open the space for the communication, ask for the feedback. 3 magic words. Tell me more. In a positive way, invite it. Sometimes it just takes a space. Because what's happening when you come home and they say, I'm fine, and you're obviously not fine, is the noises in their head. They're not translating into language. They're telling themselves, no one likes me, everybody hates me, I'm gonna go eat worms. I don't have permission to communicate. I'm less than. All of those messages are the noise that you now have to cut through if you want to successfully communicate. If you don't want to successfully communicate, you can look at your roommate and say, okay, have fun, bye. You know, that's Sheldon on The Big Bang Theory. You make that choice. Make a choice of your level of engagement and time box yourself. Go, okay, do I have time for this right now? And if you don't engage. Be respectful of that, because when you do, the timer's going off in your head, and now the noise is there going, oh shit, I gotta get out of here. Oh man, this is a lot longer. This is, oh wow. Now, and they start to unload and unpack because you've invited them to do so, and you didn't realize they were really in the deep end of the pool. I had room for the kiddie pool, please, but so measure that. And when that happens, you can say, wow, let me give you some acknowledgement. That sounds rough. Can I get back to you on that? I've got to go. But I hear that, and that's terrible. And I want to give you some acknowledgement of that and give you space to unload that and tell me more when I get back. Manage the engagement. That's how you step in it without that accident I was describing, because people follow the pattern. And that's the pattern. Say, oh, what's up? Without going, oh, I don't have time to find out what's up. And I didn't pay attention. Learn to pay attention to the difference between the words and the body language and the tone, especially with the clients in your team, to say, okay, you've said this, but I'm observing that. And you can even say so. I'm worried about my observation and inferences, and I need to reconcile these two things. I'm concerned that you're telling me you're okay, but you don't look okay, and it's making me feel anxious. And that's another brain hack. Because as soon as you start to connect to people, they want you not to feel bad. So we say, I'm not feeling okay. Like, okay, let me attend to that. That's why you're building those relationships and moving up the scale to build that in, so they will respond that way. When you're working down that decay list and you start to get that to contempt, they don't care that you feel bad. They're like, fine, bye. That's why you build those things and do it at every interaction. Let me move on to conflict. Any questions on, sir?
So this is good for, in face-to-face kind of conversations, communication. Does that just kind of degrade as you go down the chain to phone, to
Yep.
email?
Yep. Yeah, and I get to that later in the presentation. That's exactly right. This is about what is the best channel for communication in person. As soon as you stop being in person and you just pick up the phone, now I have cut off 55% of the ability to communicate the message or the meaning, because there's no body language over the phone, just my tone. When I get into an email, which is the most common way we communicate, or even chat, that's why emoticons were invented. They had to be, because you had to add some emoticon to tell the difference between you're so smart and you're so smart. Am I being sincere or am I being sarcastic? If you see the movie The Martian, there's this small point in the movie where he can only text. And they're sitting there at NASA going, do you think he means that this way or this way? And they're parsing what is his tone, because they can't parse his body language. But that's exactly right. The richest form of communication, the most successful, the best opportunity you have will be in person. That is not always efficient. That's not always available. So be aware of watching when is communication decaying through text, through a text format. And if you're not able to recover it, get on the phone. Get that tone involved. Start listening to the client, listening for the noise. The noise may be, something at home that they're not even aware they brought in. It may be that they didn't sleep. It may be that they haven't had lunch. Whatever it is. A fellow at Stanford University, Dr. Robert Sapolsky, has done a lot of research on behavior and says more of it has to do with chemistry and biology than we think. You think you're making choices right now that are totally discrete, independent, he'll show you they're not. It's just like any analysis of variance, there are multiple factors and they will have different weights. So, yes, your richest form of communication is in person. It does decay. You are going down to 7% efficiency with just words. That works great with your own team that you work with every day, with Tuckman's ladder of team development, forming, storming, norming, performing, because you have normalized your vocabulary. I understand when Sean says, I want you to make it blue, he means royal blue. Because 99 out of 100 times, that's what he always meant.
I mean, UC Davis blue, because that's
Oh, I'm
the one
sorry,
that's on
of
the
course,
list.
of course. I should have known, I forgot. See, more noise. Yeah, so the more you get those perceptual frames in alignment, the easier it is to get away with just 7%. You can text around the company, you can chat around the company, and it's fine. But with a client, you'll step from one abstraction to the other without pausing to go, wait, now the perceptual frames are different. They're much further apart. So I've got to respect that and attend to that. Start paying attention to some of that. I've got to respect our time a little bit too. Let me walk us through some conflict. Conflict, again, simple model. Difference between expectations and reality. When reality exceeds our expectations, we do not have conflict. When my paycheck is bigger than I thought it was going to be, I do not have conflict. When my paycheck is exactly what I expect it to be, I do not have conflict. When it is less than, hey, where's my money? I have conflict. It's that simple. When what I expect does not match reality. The simple way to observe this and tell yourself this is true, watch yourself when driving in traffic. Who is the car you get mad at? Who's the other driver you get mad at? When they have done something unexpected. They've cut you off, they've changed lanes without giving a blinker, they've come across, they didn't follow the pattern, and you feel conflict. Now the level of that conflict is easy to let go as soon as that driver is out of your field of view, easy to let go, but it's a great way to understand it. So you're trying to constantly manage the gap between people's expectations and reality. Another great place to observe this is waiting tables or being a customer. If I'm your waiter and you order the chicken sandwich and I come back out with everyone else's order and say, yeah, they're out of chicken, dude, but here's a burger, I have totally failed. You're going to have conflict, you don't get what you want, and I missed the opportunity to manage your expectations. If I took your order, walked to the kitchen, found out they're out of chicken, and came back immediately, and this has happened, you guys will observe this at the next table or your own table, they say, by the time I got to the kitchen, they'd run out of chicken and I didn't know that, can I get you something else? Now you manage expectations. When you know you cannot meet the expectation you've given the client, don't wait to tell them. Call them up immediately. Use a rich form of communication. Don't email them. You want them to hear your tone. You want them to hear that sincerity. Again, use the brain hacks and use the account you built. In that moment, the account you built is going to take a hit. You just disappointed them. That's why you built the account. All those small wins. And you're going to take a hit, but you're going to try and build it back up as well by returning a build of confidence. You say, I know I told you this, but but I'm on the job, I'm paying attention, and I'm attending to you. And they go, okay, I didn't get what I want, but I have confidence again. Zero sum, we're good. And your account's back to good or even better. The more you can do that, you want to grab those wins every chance you get. So look for that difference between expectations and reality. Manage the gap. Watch for it. With your client, with your team, with your boss, with your spouse, with your kids. Any questions? When it gets late, I get faster. All right. What does conflict look like? I'm going to blow a little bit, but as I said before, each culture, each society has a different vocabulary. I'm determined to become fluent in Spanish this year. because I've had so many Spanish friends, I had Spanish roommates in college, and my Spanish roommate said, yeah, there's Spanish, and then there's, Spanish in Nicaragua, there's Spanish in Chile, there's Spanish in Los Angeles. Even for websites, when I translate, I have to localize which Spanish. So language changes, but emotional expression does not. Every emotion you can name can be reduced to one of these basic 6 things. The movie Inside Out, did it have 4 or 5?
5.
They had to discriminate against one of them, and there were actually a few more that are a little minor. But for the most part, any emotion you can name exists in one of these high level of abstractions on some scale. And your emotional experience relates to your vocabulary, again the noise, in each of these levels of abstraction. Most people, when it comes to ashamed, have a very small vocabulary. How many words can you think of for ashamed? About 3. I'm ashamed, I'm embarrassed. I can't even think of the third one. But when it comes to mad, oh, I got a huge list. I'm irritated, I'm peeved, I'm pissed, I'm annoyed, I'm furious. There's a huge range, and that dictates my emotional range. Watch when you're dealing with the conflict and you've got someone ranting at you. You've got to manage that communication event. Okay, what emotions am I dealing with? Happy, sad, mad, afraid, ashamed, confused. What is it? And they will be more than one at once. Is this person telling me they are happy, sad, mad, afraid, ashamed, confused? Again, very simple. I can keep 6 things in my pocket and run down the list and start to address. Usually happy is not a conflict I have to manage. Sad is not a conflict I can fix, but I can acknowledge, give support, and get a win, and get a connection. Mad is the one I got to work on. Afraid is one I can work on. Ashamed, again, is more like sad. I can acknowledge and try to support and move. And then confused is definitely one I can address. When you look, children are a great example of watching emotions and process. Let me put a quick pin in this. There is a difference between feelings and emotions. Feelings are physical. I can feel my finger poking my leg. An emotion is that vocabulary. What word do I assign to that feeling? And they're ubiquitous. And this is where, again, the brains come in. You go to a scary movie, and all of a sudden the monster comes up. The lizard brain responds to danger, afraid. It hits the amygdala, it hits the adrenal cortex, and starts flooding the body with fight or flight response chemistry. A split second later, because it's slower, prefrontal cortex says, it's just a movie, and shuts it down. But the body has experienced that jolt. That person next to you goes, whoa! Or you do it to them, you poke them, something fun. That's why scary movies are fun. It's the brain hack. The chemistry happens. You can't stop it. Your client can't stop it. Your spouse, your team, no one can stop it. Emotions are ubiquitous, no matter how much control, and I try to exercise and not show you a lot of physical body language communication about what I'm feeling and what is the word I associate that to describe my degree of emotion, but it is this 6 basic things. Every primate on the planet expresses these 6 emotions in these 6 ways, with these facial expressions. 55, 38, 7, right there. More than half the message you can read right there. That's why you're watching. Start to deprogram all the learning you've had your whole life. Are you paying attention? Are you listening to what I'm saying? Yeah, but I'm watching the body language and you're full of it. Stop listening to what they're saying and start listening to what they're saying in context of what you're seeing them do. What is the body language? That's why you'll say, man, I don't know what's wrong there, but something's wrong. Because you've observed a difference between how they're acting and what they're saying. It's there, and you perceive it. Take a step back and realize that. So as you're dealing with a client who's snarling in your face, what are they feeling? Children having a meltdown, think of these emotions, think of the energy of these emotions. Happy, it's up, it feels good. Sad is down, it's very inward. Mad is very outward. What am I mad at? but am I at about? There's a reason for this. Afraid is inward. Something scares me, I'm withdrawing. Ashamed is inward. Confused is inward. So I have one out that's not a problem, one out that is a problem, and 4 that come in. So when sometimes you see children, especially in public, you're going, man, that parent can't manage their kid. Think for a second. What is that child, your child, doing? That they may be having a complete meltdown. Are they happy, sad, mad, afraid, ashamed, confused? Are they really mad? Or are they overwhelmed by a combination of any of those other 4? And it is so much coming in, something has to come out. And children do not have emotional maturity or control or a fully developed prefrontal cortex. Not until age 28. The amygdala comes in, not the amygdala, the center of the brain comes in about age 10. So little kids, no control at all. And expecting them to have that control is just going to be a lot of pain. So I want to give you that as an example to observe these communication hacks and watch them and go, yes, I see it there, 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 there. And start to observe it in your own life so you can use the tool. The emotive state of someone you're dealing with may be a combination. So when someone is yelling at you, don't just say, oh, they're mad. Go through all 6. Are they mad? Or are they overwhelmed and this is the only thing that's coming out? Sometimes your spouse, your significant other will sound that way, and through a little bit of tell me more, what you find out is they're afraid of something, they're ashamed about something, and they're sad about something. They're not really mad, but it's too intense. And you're finally home, and you're the person they connect to on a very intimate level, so they're going to let it out. And your observation and inference is they're bad. That's wrong. 80% of the time, our observations and inferences are wrong, which is why it's very important to take responsibility and check in. You say, I'm observing this and I infer that. Is that right? And you start to align those perceptual frames. You start to fix that relationship. Over time, it gets much, much easier. So you try this, because you hear me going, yeah, okay. Try it. It's simple. You'll see it happen the same way I did. I'm like, holy cow, this works. Every primate on the planet, we are wired this way that far back. 55, 38, 7. That's one of the best tools I have for you.
Can I say something? You touched on this very briefly, but this is maybe off topic or something, but how come every single one of those, in their extreme, leads to the physical act of crime?
I can't give a full answer to that. That has to do with body chemistry, and you'll notice the difference between men and women. One of my closest friends in graduate school, she dealt with stress with crying. And men frequently don't do that, or they're taught not to do that. Some of them do, and society usually discriminates against that and teaches the boys, don't cry. But women are allowed to do that. And it did not make me uncomfortable. It weirded people out. It's like, Lisa's crying again. And I'm like, so? She's not sad, she's stressed. You know, she's not crying about, oh, my life is terrible. It's like, I got too much work. And it just physically comes out. There's a connection.
And kids particularly, like, you know, the baby's crying. Well, the baby's hungry, right?
Right. That's the first communication channel you have as an infant. And you're wired for it.
Angry.
To be able to get attention from an adult, to say, I got to communicate that I need something. It may be food, it may be water, it may be poop, it may just be to be held, and this is the only thing I got. So yes, that also goes way back, something very basal. You'll hear almost every, not just primates, every animal will cry for a mother. As a human, you'll be able to recognize it. If you're a dog person or a cat person, over time, you can translate the call of your pet, and not just your pet, but ones of the same species. Other canines, like, that dog wants out, or that dog wants your attention, something like that. When they've done this with blind tests, it's been surprisingly accurate. So there's a huge connection, I should delve into this a little more, between feeling and emotion. The emotion is the word that exists in the brain. The feeling exists in the body. Which one's bigger? The body is a massive lever on the brain. So you feel a certain way. And the body is telling the brain, we feel this way. And you start to learn, your brain says, okay, regardless of how we feel, we're not going to act that way, we're not going to speak that way. But the body keeps pushing that chemistry and that message up there until the brain can calm it down. You'll see people say, I can't talk right now, I gotta go calm down. They mean physically, not mentally. The body will not let the brain go. As you start to vocalize what I'm upset about, it gets more intense. And children, they're explaining why I'm upset. So when you walk up to the adult and say, what's wrong? And they start to tell you, they get worse and worse and worse. They're vocalizing. And it's this trap, because parents start to get that. They go, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. You know, it's okay. Yeah, or they'll say, I don't want to hear it. You know, when kids are bickering, and because one's going to start litigating their case and why I've been wrong, and Johnny didn't give me my turn, Susie stole my gum. And as they vocalize, the emotions just become overwhelming, because the brain, it becomes a circle. The body feels something and tells the brain, we feel this. The brain assigns a vocabulary word to it to emote, and then sends the chemistry back. This chemistry happens at a trillionth of a second. Brain's a few pounds, the rest of me is 180 pounds. It's going to lose without a lot of practice and training. I can talk about these tools, these skills.
I don't talk about that. I know.
It's
Sorry.
been years.
Very curious.
I'm still trying to get better at using them. Even knowing them. It's the moment from the Matrix. Knowing the path and walking the path, not the same. Yeah. You can pay attention to that. If you have especially emotive team member or boss or client, stay off that. That's when tell me more is going to turn loose the floodgates, especially with somebody who doesn't have emotional control or maturity like a child. So there's a cycle. Body feels this, tells the brain, yes, okay, I'm responding to that feeling, this is my emotion. And tells the body, this is how we feel. The body says, yes, we're going to crank out more of that chemistry. Boom. And it goes. And as you start vocalizing it means the brain is now going, oh, to vocalize that, I've got to take the image, translate it into words, and connect all those circuits. And as I do, I increase the chemistry. It's tricky, because you have to say, okay, I want to acknowledge you're emoting and you have a feeling and you're responding to life around you, but I don't want to melt down right now. That's why some parents use a distraction technique. It's tricky, because you wind up in that situation where boys don't cry, and you're suppressing emotions and you're teaching bad habits versus what you want to do, which is not that. You want to support good cognitive development, good balance, and realize it's going to take 28 years before you're done, more or less. It's really tricky. Realizing there's a connection between the brain and the body for a feeling and emotion, and it's cyclical, and you want to try and hack in and break the cycle. Giving confidence. A good hack is to tell the child, okay, we'll fix it. And they'll start to emote, because you're now, as the parent's always a rescuer. I'm going to tell the parent absolutely everything so they have all the information. Same way I used to when all I can do is cry. And you keep responding. Give them confidence that they don't have to explain, that they don't have to be afraid that they're not going to have their needs met. And the more you can do that, that they don't have to keep talking about it, and grab them, change the environment, get them out of the situation, so they're not still looking at all the pieces of evidence that they had to litigate, and explain that's wrong, and that's wrong, and I don't like that. It's going to cascade. And you open the floodgate to happy, sad, mad, afraid, ashamed, confused. What's overwhelming me is going to come out in this way, and here's all the details. So change the environment, hack their brain, give them confidence that it's going to be okay. I'm going to listen. We'll figure it out, and get them out of that emotional moment, or even yourself out of the emotional moment. We'd say, okay, I was really angry when I said that. Give me a minute. I don't mean that. I need to calm down, and I'll come back and tell you something I do mean. Because when it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and the child wandered off in Walmart because of some shiny object, and you're like, you are never coming shopping with us again. The child's going, you have just terrified your child and traumatized them, which is not what you want. Now you feel like terrible too. Again, go back to raising to the level conversation in the present tense. Okay, that's not what I mean. Give me a minute. And walk it back. You can. You absolutely can. You're going to be there. You're going to be that moment. It's like, I'm the one who's out of energy and unable. Your team will be that way in the afternoon when they're done with a long client meeting, if you're doing sprints, and you're having the long agile planning meetings, 4 to 6 hours, people get fatigued. Plan breaks, plan food, nutrition, plan neural support, plan something fun to do something else to support a different neural path. Neurons that fire together will wire together. Start supporting different neural paths. It takes some experimentation, to be honest, because everyone's going to be unique. And some people will respond to things differently. One of my friends is autistic. She sees numbers as colors. So she will remember your birthday as, yeah, you're blue-green, and that means a certain number. And I can't translate that. But that's what's going on in her brain. Again, some of the noise, some of the wiring. And it takes some experimentation to find that out. And the 3 magic words in that case, because you're not in an emotive event, help. Tell me more. Does that dive deep enough? ABCs of emotions. How did you get to, I want to do this as quick as I can, how did you get to an emotional result? This is the cognitive behavioral theory of emotional process. There's an activating event, independent variable. Something outside you happens. No control over that. There is something you believe about that event that relates it to you. There are no more apples. And I wanted one. I believe I was hungry. I believe I love apples. I now have a caused, emotive response. I'm disappointed. I'm sad. Okay, that one's pretty straightforward. How do you change your own emotions or start to help a child change their emotions? It's difficult to do when they're having emotions and all that brain chemistry going on. You can't do it in that moment. You have to wait. Some beliefs can be changed very easily. Independent variable, this is your transformation function. Dependent variable, caused. The only way to change an emotion, you're not going to change the feeling. You're going to change the emotional response to that feeling by changing the belief. You're going to discard or discount irrational beliefs. You know, I'm upset because Susie was mean to me and Susie should like me. That's not a rational belief. But children aren't going to be able to manage that. Everyone should have pickles with every meal. That is obviously a rational belief. Gravity should work. That's not an irrational belief. You're not going to be able to change that. Some beliefs take a long time to be able to modify and change. Some, as soon as you say them out loud to someone, it's like, so you believe that absolutely everyone should think your hair is great? Really? And the tone and the body language can sometimes snap someone. That's one of the hacks you're actually using with the children that I was describing. You need to pivot them off of whatever emotion. Find a way. Sometimes anger does that. I don't recommend it too often because it can be abused and become abusive. You'll see kids do it to each other and adults do it to kids. They say, oh, look at me, I'm being silly. And they're pivoting you. You're pivoting the child with that tool. So these are your ABCs. Again, a tool you can put in your pocket. What was the activating event? What's the relative belief that caused that emotive response? This is a result of some belief related to some event. So these are my key takeaways. Active listening, help your client, help whoever's talking to you, get the message across. Tell me more. Show them some body language. If you're not sure, make a face at them. Or say, can I ask a question? Something to give them the feedback, to get what you want. And then when you're the speaker, it's your responsibility to make sure the message is received so that you get the fish sandwich you ordered and not the cheeseburger, so you don't walk away with a problem. Ask for the feedback. Tell me what you understand about what I just described, please. I don't want to be obsequious or I don't want to be arrogant about it, but I need to make sure I'm meeting your needs, so I need to make sure I understand. Email, phone, in person, exactly what you were saying, John. Manage the gap between expectations and reality. Conflict. Listen for the nature of conflict. Happy, sad, mad, afraid, ashamed, confused. There are models list those words differently. That's the way I learned it, and it's easy to remember because they rhyme. And then how to understand them. Your ABCs of the emotional process. Somebody is happy, sad, mad, afraid, ashamed, confused because they're reacting to some independent variable relative to what they believe. The client has a problem with what they believe, my ability to address that problem. And I need to give them confidence. In the in the moment of conflict, people are dealing with often their self-image or their public image. There are 4 basic responses. People respond to conflict by withdrawing. That's a lose. Low effort, low effectiveness. Some people respond to criticism by rationalizing, or they will counterattack. Now, this doesn't happen in business relationships as much because you're not allowed to do those things. The thing to do is listen calmly. When your client is ranting in your face, listen calmly. You need to give them, in that moment, to get the child out of that. And you want to stop them from that escalation, from the vocalization. Give them confidence that you're going to hear what their issue is, and that you're going to address what their issue is, and you're going to support that, and that you sincerely will do that. And that's the successful way through. You can't just withdraw, you can't counterattack, and you can't rationalize, because people get it. That was a fallacy. You're not listening to me. Find a way to communicate successfully. I am listening to you. I am going to address what you need, but I've got to tell me more so I know what that need is, so I'm addressing the right thing, and I'm not just giving a knee-jerk response to, oh, you're mad. Okay, I'll fix that. I'm not actually mad. I'm afraid, ashamed, and confused. So I've addressed the person in front of me is now addressing the wrong thing. I now feel more frustrated. I've lost confidence. Giving confidence is that's the pivotal point. When that client is in your face, find a way to communicate confidence, walk them back, and say, start telling me more without getting emotional, walk them back. You continue to give them support that says they are going to have their issue addressed. That acknowledgement, the paraphrasing, okay, you just told me this, and agree to the truth. When the client says, you said this would be done here, you're right, I did. Own it. It's the truth. It doesn't damage you. Then agree the truth and the problem, and to talk. So successfully there, you've got to remain calm and show that you're listening and show respect. There's a difference between saying, I'm sorry, and an apology. This is my last point for you. Most people understand I'm sorry is meaningless. An apology has 2 important parts. The acknowledgement of what the pain point is, and a statement of how I will address it. I heard you say that we were late, and that was disappointing. You're right, and in the future, I will manage your expectations better. When I know I'm going to be late, I will let you know. Or, in this case, there was a power outage at Davis. They shut down the whole city because city council didn't pay the money, pay the bill. My server went down. There was no way for me to deliver. Give this to you on time. But I actually got away with turning in my term paper late as a freshman in college by claiming that the computer lab had been closed a day early. The English teacher bought it, saved my grade. Difference between saying I'm sorry and apology. One gives confidence, one almost everyone knows is worthless. In the movie Hunger Games, one of the factions, as you reach the later point in the movie, the lawyer faction, who has helped the despots get in power, and they're now, they're sort of been captured, and there's like, okay, what are we going to do with you guys? The leader says, we supported the wrong people, and for that, we owe you an apology. And instantly, they're like, okay, maybe you're not buying food yet. In the future, we are going to listen and do what's right. Okay, you can stay. You have now gone from us versus them as the them, and rejoined us. That's the power of apology. Any questions? Anything else I can do for you guys? I thank you so much for letting me take more of your time. I really believe in these messages. I really believe in the power of good communication to save projects, keep it on budget, save just your peace of mind, and be successful and get that repeat business. And for the client, when you get to that level of emotional acknowledgement, when you get to this, that client loves you so much. They're like, oh man, they just feel it. They're like, that guy's great. They will tell everybody that. And that's really great for your business. What else can I answer for you guys? I know I've just hit you with a wall of text. I've got, as I observe and make inferences, there's some blank books, and some of them may be just hungry stomachs. And thank you all for being here. Great thank you. Have a great time at camp. And thank you, Letty, for making a recording for me to tune up.
You're welcome.
Is that going to be available?
Yeah, I can do that.